What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Real Talks with Jakub, where I interview doers, achievers, and go-getters and how they created their own luck and became successful. And today we are here with Mark Cumicek. Mark is a coach and practitioner of the Dream Manager program, certified through Floyd Consulting. The Dream Manager program directly helps employees become the best versions of themselves. By helping people become more passionate and engaged in their lives, they naturally become more passionate, engaged, and effective at work. Mark says, and I quote, "When your people thrive and make their dreams come true, so does your organization." So what exactly Mark does? He helps companies with employee engagement, so they're able to retain valued team members and attract new talent. So whether you're a leader or just someone interested in how to become the best version of yourself, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
I'm quite excited to have this conversation, and honestly, I decided that I will propose this interview because I was so impressed by the picture you sent me and how unique approach on LinkedIn it was. And you sent me like a really simple picture drawn by a pencil on a piece of paper, which was pretty much describing what you do. So can you tell me a little bit more about what is in the picture so our audience knows as well?
Absolutely. It's what I call the personal best version flywheel. And it's a picture, and I'll show it here and see if you can pick it up. But it has, on the top, it has dream, and then it, in parentheses, has big. And then it has plan and grow new skills on this side here. And then you get into achieve, and there's a smiley face there. And then you build confidence. So the flywheel concept comes out of the book From Good to Great. That was a pretty popular business book a while back. And it encourages people to, within their organization, to build their organization's flywheel, if you will. Okay. So the concept is, if you can get momentum on that flywheel, you get a spin around that flywheel, and you naturally build momentum with your business model. But I kind of took that and said, hey, there's concepts of this that apply to personal development as well. And I just got out a pencil and started drawing it. And my artistic abilities aren't great by any means. But what came out of that was this personal flywheel, which my take on it is, as you get people to take that first spin around the flywheel, they build confidence and are willing to dream bigger. So as I work with individuals, I get them to articulate a dream that maybe isn't really even considered a dream or a huge life goal, but it's something they can accomplish in the first couple of weeks. Help them articulate that, ultimately help them put some planning around it to take those first action steps, help give them a little bit of a push so that they ultimately achieve that. Yes. Then they gain confidence, and then they're ready to dream bigger. So it's this ongoing cycle where you build momentum.
Building
momentum really resonated with people.
I love it. And I really like how genuine it was. And it was that you would be doing something like trying to present yourself in a big way that, hey, I'm this expert. You just send me a picture, and that's what I liked about it.
I'm so glad it resonated with you. But the reaction you had is the reaction a lot of people I've had have had. It helped me really, articulate what I do and why it's valuable. And my take on it is, because I ultimately help organizations become their best version, as you mentioned in my introduction. And they can get their own flywheel spinning and be their best version by helping each individual within their organization get going on their own personal flywheel. So you imagine you get the momentum of the individuals dreaming bigger, achieving, gaining confidence, and they're all doing that within your organization. What's going to naturally happen to the flywheel of your entire organization? You're going to gain tremendous momentum. That's how it fits together into an organizational perspective.
Mark, I see that quite a lot of people in this similar industry are using the best version of yourself.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what's your take on this? It's almost like a buzzword phrase that so many coaches are using, but why did you decide to use this term or this phrase?
Honestly, it came out of really reading and taking to its core and making it a part of my business process, the book, The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. And this is a book he wrote back in 2008. So it's been around a while. And I dare to say he's one of the leaders in coining that term, becoming your best version. So I took it directly from that book. And as a practitioner of the Dream Manager program, I've really relied on it. I think it's a powerful statement. It's one of those statements that spoke to me immediately, because it's like, yeah, my whole essence and why I'm on this planet is to become the best version of me. It's not to become the best version of Jacob or Sally or Jane or Jim. It's to become the best version of Mark. We're all unique human beings. So that definition is going to be a little bit different to each of us. Unfortunately, like you said, it's become used more and more and become almost cliche in a lot of ways. But one thing I think is important with that phrase is best version of yourself can be a little bit daunting. I think what we need to focus on is becoming a better version of ourselves. What that comes down to is being 1% better today than I was yesterday. So instead of necessarily, as I work with clients, I'm not always bringing up the best version, because that can be daunting again. But what's the better version of you look like today versus yesterday? Can we be 1% better, and how do we take steps in order to move in that direction?
And what I like about what you said is that people are actually defining it for themselves, because for everybody it's different, right? And that's where the flywheel concept comes in again, because they are then, after they finish one cycle, they maybe define like what is the next step, like what is the next 1% they can achieve next week or something. I like it. I like it a lot. So Mark, I'm pretty sure that we'll get into the ways how exactly you help your clients a little bit later, but I would like to know about you, about your background. How did you get into this whole employee engagement industry?
Absolutely. And I'll just give the most important things I'll hit on first here. I'm married to a wonderful woman named Jenny. She's a nurse practitioner, so in the healthcare field. I have two sons, Sam and Daniel, a 10-year-old, so a fourth grader, and a 8th grader who's 14. And we have a dog who you may hear bark in the background here. But we live in Wisconsin in the United States. So about 3 hours, if you drive straight north of Chicago, about 3 hours, you'll find us in Green Bay, Wisconsin area. So I've been in this general area my whole life. Started my career doing some consulting work, and then ended up with an organization that insured jewelry, and had a 5-year career at this jewelry insurance company. It was an invaluable experience. Had the opportunity to jump around the organization, do all sorts of different things. After that 15 years, and as I approached my 40th birthday, I began to have an itch to go do something different. So I decided to leave that organization and go out and do some consulting work. And after consulting and helping businesses, basically I call it traditional consulting work, move a project from point A to point B. I did some of that, but also along that way, I discovered that book that I mentioned earlier, The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. And that book it's based on an organization that's having all sorts of employee engagement and retention issues. And I'm talking like 250% turnover in a given year. So outrageous retention issues. They try all sorts of different things. And then finally, they come upon a kind of obscure concept of, let's put a dream manager in place. And this dream manager is responsible for meeting with the employees within the organization and doing what we talked about earlier, helping them articulate, plan for, ultimately achieve their life dreams or goals. And ultimately, in doing that, they become more passionate and engaged in their life. What the organization saw is people become more passionate and engaged in their lives outside of work, and they're naturally more passionate and engaged in the workplace. So after reading this book, I'm like, there's something there. And I kept an eye on it. I actually started incorporating it into my leadership style. And as I worked with people, getting to know them beyond just them in the workplace and their career development aspirations, but trying to understand what their aspirations in life were as a whole. So does someone want to buy their first home? Do they want to travel to Alaska in an RV and go on a tremendous vacation with their family? Do they want to run their first marathon? As soon as you start to broach those subjects with people, you create a whole new level of engagement with them from an employer perspective.
Okay,
go ahead. As I kind of understood that book a little bit more, I started utilizing it as part of my consulting practice. And then in 2019, I went all in and got certified through Matthew Kelly's consulting company, Floyd Consulting, and really made this the core of my practice going forward. So now I'm all about helping small to medium-sized companies make this program a part of their culture and a part of their benefit package for their employees, if you will, and really help the organization become its best version with a fully engaged workforce.
Dream manager. So that's somebody who comes to the company from the outside, right? It's or is it like in-house position?
You can do both. There are a number of organizations that do have a dream coach or a dream manager as part of their organization as a job responsibility. Those are generally larger organizations that can afford that level of commitment. Where I find myself being is more of a fractional dream manager. So I help those small to medium-sized companies benefit from a program such as this without having to put a lot of financial capital out there to make it happen. So I make it accessible for small to medium-sized businesses.
So do you think that high turnover and retention problems are caused because managers and leaders and teams are not interested in their employees, in their team members, that they maybe perceive them only as a number and not as a human being who wants to go skiing or buy a first home?
I believe that's an aspect of it. I don't think that's always the aspect of it, but that's definitely an angle. And that's where the Dream Manager a program such as this can come in, of really helping people, like you said, understanding them by name, understanding their unique situation. As you talked earlier, the Flywheel, the best version concept, it's all about getting to know someone at an individual level. And frankly, as you do that, you create an intense amount of loyalty just in listening and understanding them and taking that opportunity to be more vulnerable, you personally with them, and then they open up and be vulnerable with you. Ultimately, that helps the organization in the end. Where it really comes to it's taken to the next level is when you learn about them and learn something that they want to accomplish in life that has nothing to do with your business, per se, has nothing to do with your business, but you'll ultimately help them achieve that. And all of a sudden you have someone that's going to run through a brick wall for your organization, right? And they're more loyal, they're more engaged. I like to put it this way, frankly, with people, it's kind of absurd that we think that people that outside of the workplace don't have their shit together in life, that are all of a sudden going to walk into the factory or walk into the office and all of a sudden have their shit together. So let's help them get their shit together out in the real world, right? And when we do that and we get them excited about life again, because they're charging towards their goals and their dreams, they're going to do the same for your organization.
And I think it might be quite surprising experience, right? Because if company hires you as a dream manager or somebody to help with retention, and then you come and talk to employees and you start talking about, okay, how is the situation at home? Right. I mean that's quite surprising, at least for me it would, because I would expect some consultant who comes and show me the numbers, right? But you do something different. So how people usually react to that?
It's a more personal approach. And if I go into an organization of 100 people, for example, and do some work, realistically, about out of the gates, 10% would be interested in doing more of a coaching program like this and having that more intimate conversation. But word travels quickly. As soon as they see that Jane comes in and meets with Mark, and all of a sudden she's starting to talk about some of her goals in life, and they see an increased level of energy because she's moving towards those goals. And they ultimately hear, oh, she bought her first home, or she went on that vacation, or she ran that marathon. People wonder what the transformation is that's happening. And they can tie it back to the Dream Manager program, and then others sign up. So the program, frankly, it's not going to be for everyone within an organization, but in and of itself, it can help the whole organization because word travels fast. And when you see people ultimately achieving their life dreams and life goals and see the impact it has on them as a coworker or a colleague, it can really lift the tide of the organization.
Do you start usually with managers or do you go to individual employees?
It depends on the organization. A lot of times it does help to, get the managers involved because you give them some skills then where they can make this a part of their leadership style. Kind of that's kind of how I got into this and how I adopted it and went all in on it, was to start making it part of my leadership style. So I think that's a good approach for a lot of organizations because then they can make it sustainable within their leadership team, which I think is fantastic. Some organizations see more benefit in bringing an outsider in and having them, be the coach. It kind of puts the program more in a limelight, and they'll have you work with the employees directly right out of the gates by doing a lot of times what's called a dream storm, which is more of a workshop approach. So bring all the employees together. Let's do a dream storm, which is really it's a workshop process where we challenge and dare people to be a little bit vulnerable and share and reignite some of their personal dreams. So I basically worked through 20 questions with them. Some ones that are fun to really answer and have discussion on, and then some that are a little more challenging and reflective.
And what I also think is that you are maybe the first person in years that is interested in this particular person's dreams and goals.
Right.
So it can be quite like life-changing experience for them because, after 8 years, somebody asked me what I actually want.
Right. I'll give you an example. I had last, October, I believe it was, working with a client, and she was a 55-year-old woman and looked me point blank in the eyes and said, "What do I have to dream about? I'm 55. My life's basically over. My life, everything's a mess. I'm not going anywhere. What should I do?" And I looked at her and I said, "You're 55. You're in pretty good health, right?" And she agreed to that. And I said, "Well, realistically, considering the health you could live to be 90. Do you really want to piss away the next 45 years of your life? If you do, we probably shouldn't have this conversation, right? But if you're all in, let's talk." And then we had a little more small talk after that, and we went our separate ways. And I said, "If you're interested, really reflect on this and give it some thought." She came back. It was about 2 weeks later. It took her some time. But she came back and said, "Okay, I'm ready to dream." We did an individual dream storm, got her dreaming again, ultimately got her to articulate, and we decided on 4 dreams we were going to work on together. So fast forward from October to February, I get a text message from her. She's like, "I just can't wait to meet with you. So much has changed." And she could not wait to sit down and detail through what she's accomplished over that short period of time. So that went from someone that was completely not engaged in life, not passionate about life, to being all in, because she got a little bit of encouragement. She was given some skills and some resource and some accountability to help make things happen. But then she took the ball and ran with it. So not only did she make things better, you can imagine what that did to the colleagues around her within the workplace as well, and how much of a better employee she became in a short period of time, because she wasn't the person coming in frowning and spreading negative energy anymore. She had a more upbeat attitude and was excited about life again.
It's a wonderful story. I mean, as Tony Robbins says, progress equals happiness, right?
Absolutely, it does.
Now she has something to work towards, and I mean, the journey is what makes her happy, not like eventually hitting the goal. I mean, that's amazing too, but she's waking up with a purpose.
Right. But it hits on a point you said earlier, Jacob, though. It's weird to some people. There's oftentimes a level of resistance there too. She had the resistance. What do I have to dream about? I don't deserve to dream. That's the kind of stuff that you do hit right away early in this program. But if you can drive through it and have the courage to continue to drive through it, you will get people through that transition. And as soon as they feel they deserve to dream again, or they can give themselves room to dream again, or just make the time to do it.
Yes.
In this busy day and age,
yes.
As soon as you give them the area and the room to do that, crazy things can happen.
So that's what you do in your dream storming or dream storm workshops, right?
Right, exactly.
So you have 20 questions, and when you start working with a team or with an individual, usually you said the first reaction is, okay, what should I dream about? Why should I dream about something? So can you walk me a little bit through about your process? How do you overcome it? And maybe give me a couple of questions you ask. I know that it's your secret sauce.
No, it's not a secret sauce. I'll share some of it. It's structured a certain way, and this is all kind of becoming part of a certified dream manager. You get to understand this process, and you get to practice it and all that fun stuff. But we purposely position the questions and order them in a certain way that they start out very easy to answer, and non-confrontational,
Mm-hmm.
and then build the complexity and the reflective nature of them as we
Yes.
go. So the first example is, if you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? Give me your top
Mm-hmm.
three. You know what I mean? That's something that's easy for people to answer. Maybe in the here and now with our travel restrictions and the like, it's not so much, but generally speaking, that's an easy.
Out of the town to see my
Right,
grandpa.
right. But no, it's funny, Jacob, actually, before I get too far along, it's funny how the answers to that question have changed even in the short period of time
Mm-hmm.
where we've all been on lockdown. People are craving to travel somewhere an hour or two away, as
Really?
opposed to around the world where they were dreaming last year. So how, as our world has shrunk
Mm-hmm.
and we're stuck in our homes, we crave simplicity in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I won't get on that tangent. But we start with a question that's easy for people to answer and
Yes.
wrap their mind around, and they feel vulnerable. Okay, being vulnerable with that one. And if you're in a workshop setting, sharing that with other people, and then you kind of head down the path of, okay, what's a hobby or sport you'd like to get involved in that you're not currently doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit more vulnerability, but some people come up with, hey, I've always wanted to play the guitar. Okay, now you rekindle the dream you had that you buried when you were 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to make that happen? And or it's a sport they've been trying, or that's where the marathon thing often
Mm-hmm.
comes out. I want to run a marathon. I want to do triathlon. And then you get into about midway through, we'll talk about relationships. And this
Mm-hmm.
is where it gets a little bit more difficult, more
Mm-hmm.
reflective, but actually more powerful too. What's one relationship in your life you'd like to improve?
Hmm.
People don't often think of that as a dream, as a goal, or a life goal for that matter. However, it's probably one of the most powerful things that, whatever that relationship is, and we all have at least one,
Mm-hmm.
if we can take it on head on, put plans in place of how we're going to address it and resolve that relationship rift, if you will, it makes so many other things in our lives better. So that's where it gets a little more deep, and it's okay if it's less in a workshop setting, less of a discussion at that point, more reflective. And then ultimately we end with what I call the legacy question. So what do you want to be remembered for?
Mm-hmm.
And again, it gets very quiet at that point in time. But my takeaway for them is, I'm not expecting you guys to have discussion on this one right now, but over the next 24 hours, take a simple 10 minutes, even 5 for that matter, and write down 10 words you want people to use when they talk about you.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're
going to run the gamut with the Dreamstorm.
For this, what I want to be remembered for, I use the exercise from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That exercise. That people are on your funeral. It's a family member, friend, and coworker.
Right.
And each and every one of them has a speech.
Yes.
And what they're saying about you. So I wrote a speech for these 3 people, and I found some similarities, which then helped me to identify what is my mission in life.
That's
and
fantastic.
What I want to be, what I actually want to be remembered for. And that was really powerful, because in past, yes, I wrote some mission for myself. I wrote some values or goals, but if it's not like really ingrained in you, and it's something that you just come out thin air, it won't stick. So there needs to be like these difficult questions you actually ask on dream workshop.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like in the legacy question of the Dreamstorm of the, hey, give me your 10 words. That's a great lead into doing exactly what you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going through the coaching process together, at some point I'm going to spring on them, you should really think about writing your own eulogy, just like you talked about. It can be morbid, but it's a powerful experience.
It is
really
morbid,
help reshape your life.
Mark, let's go to the business nitty-gritty of your practice. So you said that 85% of people, or not said, but on one of your presentation, you mentioned that 85% of employees are not engaged. So that creates quite a big market for you. And I want to know,
isn't it?
I want to know about why companies approach you. Is it because they feel that their employees are not engaged, they are leaving so fast after they onboard them, or is it because they want to save money on training? What is the trigger for these companies?
It's a little bit different for each organization. I'll go back to the 85% too.
Sure.
That is from a Gallup poll. I think it's 2018, maybe 2019. So it's a recent poll. of 85%. That's not just a figure I made up. It's
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And you can look at research out there. I mean, percentages range from anywhere from like 50 or 60% up to 85. But of course, I'm going to use the most powerful one, but 85% gets people's attention.
Well, even 60 is
right.
quite a lot.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And it's I think I said at some point during this podcast that, in my opinion, every organization has an employee engagement issue, and that's to varying degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on those varying degrees is why an organization would bring me on board. If they're having retention issues, like the example of the company within the Dream Manager book,
yes,
that's a simple solution. I mean, or there's some direct ROI in that scenario,
mm-hmm.
right? If we can put a Dream Manager program in and bring your retention from A to B, move it in the right direction, that's mm-hmm. the goal. And that may take some time and some commitment from the organization. Other organizations may be in a position where we're not having retention issues. We're actually doing pretty well, but we want to do something different and unique that sets us apart. And employee benefits in this day and age, a lot of from ping pong tables to, Friday afternoon beer, mm-hmm. To good healthcare packages, at least in the US, of trying to bundle those together and make them as good as possible for the employees. Mm-hmm. Everyone's tried all sorts of different things in that regard. They come forward and say, hey, we want to try something completely off the wall and different. As you kind of described, it is quite a bit different when someone comes and says, I want to talk to you about your dreams. Mm-hmm. So they view it as an opportunity to further strengthen their culture, mm-hmm. and take things to the whole new level. So they're doing real good right now, but they're kind of on the bleeding edge and wanting to do the next thing, the mm-hmm. next right thing for their organization. Mm-hmm. So it really runs the gamut from really taking on some retention issues, or really where there's really poor employee engagement, to those that are having decent employee engagement, just want to take things up to that next level.
Mm-hmm. And retention problems and low employee engagement is actually such a hidden cost, right? It's very expensive to have not engaged employees. So right. Do you have some specific numbers? So for example, what is the average cost in company for hiring and training for, let's say, I don't know, first 3 months?
Well, they always say that if you lose an employee, and I don't know if this is going to exactly ask your question, that your cost is in the 6 figures.
Yeah, I heard that, and it's crazy.
That starts, which makes sense though when you just take a step back and think about it. An employee at any level, by the time you train, to your point, by the time you train, get them on board, get them oriented within the organization, and then all of a sudden figure out it's not going to work out because they're not engaged. You have to rip that out and start that process over again. You could totally see how the dollars mm-hmm. add up quickly. Mm-hmm. So I always use that. Hey, it's that $100,000 mark. You're really talking about if you don't have your talent truly engaged, and they end up leaving, and they're a talented individual in particular. That's mm-hmm. that's real dollars to your organization. Mm-hmm. And the more we can do to attack that 85% figure, the better off you're going to be. So in a lot of ways, it's hard to drive a hard ROI associated with this, but when you think about it through, or do a nice drawing and connect the dots, there are dollars associated with that 85% figure that are very real to an organization.
Exactly. Not everything is like measurable that you would see, okay, if we start working together, this is the figure we will make. Right. But this is like more saving, right? And, correct. But you can set some KPIs, of course. Okay, this is our retention rate now, and we want to get on this level, so it will save us this amount of money. So out of these 2 categories you mentioned, companies with retention problem and companies who are killing it, who are usually the companies you work more often with?
It's actually probably half and half.
Okay.
As I'm calculating in my head. Uh-huh. Yes, because I have an example. One's more of a startup right now, and they're truly trying to incorporate this into being a part of their culture out of the gates, mm-hmm. Of maximizing the potential of each individual within their organization. That's why they brought me on board. So that's, generally speaking, more where things are heading in my mm-hmm. hypothesis, if you will, that we're going to be trending more in that direction. Mm-hmm. However, with the disrupt of the economy right now, I don't know which one's going to trend more in the year ahead. We'll mm-hmm. see. Mm-hmm. I do believe there'll be a talent war, though. Mm-hmm. Once again, with all the layoffs and things that have happened, I think we're going to be resetting in 12, 18 months out. People are really going to be clamoring and trying to attract the best talent again. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm confident a program like this can set employers apart and help them retain the talent that's currently with them, but also help them attract well.
So you usually talk with HR managers or
correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And HR managers, but generally when I'm working with small to medium-sized companies too, I'm also working directly with the presidents and CEOs and owners of the organizations as well. Top-down support for something like this is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mark, this was wonderful. And I always want to wrap the interviews with something very actionable that people can just take and apply in their business today, tomorrow, or maybe next week. And my question for you is, what is one tip for leaders to help them retain their employees and their talents a little bit better than they're doing it right now? What is one tip, or what is one thing they can apply?
Absolutely. You need to foster within the individuals, the employees within your organization, a true and deep belief that their future is greater than their past. Their future can be bigger than their past. Without that, when people believe the opposite, that's when disengagement creeps in. That's when people not being passionate and engaged in their lives creeps in. So you have to help them develop that deep, deep understanding and belief that their future is greater than their past. When you think about it over history, the people that achieve, the people that do, the people that succeed, the people that make a tremendously huge difference have that trait, that common trait that they believe the future is greater than their past.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, if I will stay with this company, my future will be better. That's what you want. That's what you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And you want them in their personal lives to believe that too.
Yes. Yes.
That they have a lot more to achieve. And the way to do that is to get them dreaming and get them really articulating what their life goals are and getting after it.
Mm-hmm. So again, Flywheel Concept: dream big, plan, achieve, build confidence, and then dream a little bit bigger.
You got it, man.
Mark, thank you very much. Last question. Where can people find a little bit more about you? Where can they follow you if they want to maybe hire you?
You can follow me on LinkedIn, get to know me there, reach out via LinkedIn, and otherwise visit my website at onwarddream.com.
All right, perfect. So guys, just find Mark on LinkedIn, Mark Cumicek. You can just copy his name from the title of this podcast, or you can go on Onward Dream.
Onwarddream.com.
Onwarddream.com. Mark, it was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it, man.
And guys, please, if we shared some value, just grab a link. If you're watching this on YouTube, share it with your friends. And maybe if you're watching this on, if you're listening to this on some podcast platform, just take a screenshot, share it with your friends as well, so they can learn from Mark too. So that's it for today. Mark, thank you very much again, and everybody, till next time.